I think that Plato, he also talks about we shouldn't teach myths to kids, right? If I'm not mistaken, somewhere in there, probably in the laws. But he was concerned that some kind of content will lead people who are uninitiated and like naive to draw the wrong conclusions about it. I think that if I'm not mistaken, he said that like you should only learn, for example, dialectics after 35 years old. The rationale, I think that's in Pierre Hadot, like he talks about it, about the ethics of dialogue and why Plato believed that. Definitely in his work, What is Ancient Philosophy or Philosopher's Way of Life. The reason why, for example, he said that about dialectics is because he said that if you teach dialectics at a very young age, people will learn to argue about any position, and therefore they'll realize that it doesn't matter basically which position you have, because I can argue all positions.
Yeah.
And that gives them a certain sense of arrogance.
Yeah.
Right? So he said we shouldn't teach dialectics to young people because they will get that kind of arrogance, which is essentially a hindrance to wisdom. I think that probably his sort of objection to Homer or the myths was of a similar kind, in that that kind of knowledge taught at an early age might essentially like make people draw their own conclusions. I also, if I remember correctly, when he talks about Homer, he says, he has gods do stuff that gods shouldn't do, and all that stuff.
Or even the heroes. Like Achilles is crying. He says in Republic Book 3, Achilles is depicted as crying in Hades. That is not how we should teach the children what our heroes are doing. They should not be crying.
You have some of that. But I think that other than some of these kinds of comments, it's probably stems from this feeling that some of these texts contain, let's say, coded messages that only people who have a certain level of understanding can interpret and decode. So if you don't have that, then you believe basically that the gods are just like these essentially bigger than life kind of humans who do all sorts of weird things. And I think if you remember, I had told you that there's very good examples of how you can start slowly destroying that myth. And I had mentioned, if you remember, the series of wives that Zeus has, and how when you break down the etymology of each wife and you look at the progression till he gives birth to Athena through his head, it kind of hints that, hey, maybe something else is going on. Maybe this is not just someone who wants to have many wives,
right?
But maybe it's something else. And I had mentioned to you that if you look at essentially at the order, and if you think of Zeus as the cosmic mind, the cosmic nous, all right, you will notice that what I think is really happening, what the myth is really trying to tell us, and maybe there's even a deeper interpretation, but I'll just say what I think of that one, is they're showing us the qualities that a nous has to assimilate, has to make part, has to participate in, till he gives birth to wisdom. So the first wife, Metis basically is, intelligence, cunningness. That's what her name means, but that's not enough. It's not enough for you to be cunning and intelligent. So the second wife basically is Themis, who's the goddess of justice. Right? So it's not enough for you to be, cunning. You also have to be just. And then the third wife, Evrinomi, basically, her name, Nemo, means to distribute. Evri means to distribute widely. Because it's not enough for you to be cunning and wise, but you have to spread that in your entire being and to everyone potentially. It's not enough to just be just for yourself, right? So
before Zeus can give wisdom from his nous, he had to become all he had to do.
He has to assimilate all. It's almost like
you're looking at
marry.
You're looking at Zeus as an initiation of the cosmos.